All right, we're recording now. So just to give you an idea of, operations, like this is out of the POH from my my aircraft. So if I'm at 2,000 feet, I'm going to look at one thing. If I'm at 4,000, 6,000, 10,000, or 8,000, 10,000, let's say it goes. Say I'm at 12,000 feet, right? And so we're talking about cruise settings, 60, 65% power. Well, this is about all you're going to get is somewhere between 60 to 51%. But it's interesting to note that, so my red line's 2,400, right? And because I have a fixed pitch prop, I can go to 2,400. So I can do anything I want on this page. So I just pick my temperature. And so I'm either going to be 20 degrees below standard temp, which would be 29, standard temp, which would be -9, or 20 above, which would be 11, if that math works out right. So pick what I'm closest to for temperature. Let's say I'm at a standard day up there at 12,000 feet. And then I can pick any one of these settings I want within that box, right? You probably can't see it, but this middle box right here. So it's up to me. Choose whatever I like. If I want to go at 2,400 RPM, and I want to do 64% power, then I've got to set it for manifold pressure of 18 inches, which would be probably wide open at that throttle for sure. So wide open throttle, RPM 2,400. I'll be running at 64% power, burning 10.9 gallons per hour. Or maybe I want to pull my manifold pressure back, but I'm only going to get 50% power, but I'll be doing 8.7 gallons per hour, and here's my knots. So you can see how I'm going to start losing speed right there. Or maybe I want to run it slower, and I want to go 2,200 inches and, pick this one, pick this line. You can just do whatever you want.
So you can economize.
Yeah.
Getting places, you just sacrifice time.
Yep. Yeah. So it's just anything within the chart's fine at that altitude. Out of the Pilot's Operating Handbook.
Oh, shit. Definitely don't have that.
Pilot's Operating Handbook for the Skylane model, 1977 model 182Q. So back to whatever we're talking about. Okay, economizer system. Regardless of the name, it enriches the mixture above cruise settings, which is that much power. And then we talked about why. Why do we want that? Well, all right. So we talked about why we want it really rich at high RPM settings. Let me see. We could add that in there. Why rich at high power settings? And we said, what? Keeps cylinders cool, prevents detonation, can we say no loss of power? No loss of power as opposed to running lean, LOP, lean of peak. Just to point out that we didn't lose power on that power curve. All right, so 2, let me see. Why lean at power at cruise power? So why do we want to lean at cruise power then?
Engine runs cleaner.
Okay, engine runs cleaner. Engine runs cleaner.
Runs cooler. Economy.
Not necessarily. It's going to run hotter for running at peak.
Oh, gosh.
Fuel economy?
I'm sorry. Fuel economy, yes. Anything else? That's all I can think of off the top of my head.
Much cooler.
Not necessarily. It's not going to run cooler. Let's go back to that chart. So if I'm running right here, and I lean it out, is it going to run cooler?
Oh.
Well, I was assuming cruise temp versus just max.
Yeah, so like
RPM. I don't know. Is max throttle cruising? Or is
Well,
it-
okay, so if we change you've got a good point. We change this right here from 25 inches at 2,500 RPM down to cruise. All of these things are going to go down. All the temperatures are just, picture them staying the exact same way, just going down a little bit.
yeah, that's
Okay.
just
So it's cooler.
So in and of itself, it's going to be cooler because the engine's not working as hard. So everything is moved down.
Still the same curve.
But
Same
it's
curve.
Okay.
And now I start leaning it out. What happens?
It's
Still
gonna
gonna
get
get hotter.
hotter than
It's going to get hotter.
on the far
I
right.
should
Yep.
leave it all the way.
Far right is 2,500 RPM.
No, not. There's no
This is
RPM
just,
on
oh,
here.
this is just in general.
At 2,500 for this engine, right? So we don't want to say leaning it cools it. It will eventually,
Yeah, but not at max power.
But not- yeah,
Cruising.
but not right away.
I was thinking it's cruising.
Okay. All right, so that's what I got. Is there a problem with just running it rich? There's no economizer. You don't lean it. You just run it rich.
like that one.
But that's about it. Yeah. You can gain more power if you lean it out.
Hurts the pocket.
Huh?
Hurts the pocket.
Hurts. It does hurt. Yeah. Does it hurt? Let's see. How bad does it hurt? What were those numbers?
10.7 versus 9.8.
I actually know what they are. They hurt. I like having those open. Ooh, this one's even worse. Let's see here. 2,000, 4,000, 2,000. Oh, how many gallons per hour? What's my worst one on here? 13 gallons per hour.
12.8.
Yeah.
You see 13?
And mind you, that's a cruise. That is not climbing. Climbing, it goes into well into the single digits. All right, there. 8.1 gallons per hour.
So much better.
That's like
47% horsepower.
That's good.
3.5 gallons per hour.
Yeah,
How
that
many
is
hours
not
do you fly here on Friday?
nice.
How
Yeah.
many, no, I'm asking you.
Am I going to fly Friday?
How many hours does it take you to fly home to here? How long does it take you to fly here to home?
That's like a 15-minute flight.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
You have time to get comfortable before you gotta land again.
15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
So you don't
How
even
far
you
is
don't
it?
really reach your cruising altitude, or is it just whoop, whoop?
Well, you can't. So when you take off from here, we're underneath Class Charlie airspace.
Oh, so you're
So there's a 1,600 foot ceiling above us. You can't get into that unless you call them the controllers.
so you just said 1,500.
So I go right up to 1,500 and then squeeze on over into executives airspace and then call them up, go into their airspace. And then, I mean, I
Already
could,
home.
yeah, it's, from there it's 10 miles to home once I'm out of their airspace. So it's like,
Is their tower still up that late at night?
no, it's not, but I squeeze into their airspace and then I go on common traffic.
The FAA would like to know your location.
They know my location.
Yeah, that's like
It's called ADSB. Okay.
Hey, Kevin,
Yeah.
how much at cruise power when you start leaning? How much do you have to lean back to start affecting the PVP? Like, aren't you,
Right away.
So it's like instantly like.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my thought, yes.
How
As far as
back-
I know.
How far back until it's like it's a problem? So like
Well, if you're at cruise, it's
Yeah.
not a problem.
no.
You just, so I take off, even in my airplane, when I get to 1,500, I'm going to set up my cruise. So I'm at 2,000 feet. Let's see, 2,000 feet. This one to 2,000. Yeah, I'm 1,500 feet. I usually pull it back to 21 and 21, just because they're easy numbers to remember. So 21 and 21. So these columns over here. So that's 58% power.
Oh yeah, that's before the.
and then I'm going to lean it out until I get, that's about that, about 10 gallons per hour, 10.1 usually is what I'm showing. About 10.1 at that. Cruise home. Okay, but if I keep pulling back, what's the engine going to do? It's going to start running rough. Why is it running rough?
Unequal fuel distribution.
Unequal fuel distribution. Some people say that you're getting a lean misfire in some of the cylinders. I don't believe that's true. I think it's just an uneven power distribution across all 6 cylinders. So it starts running rough. Some of them are running strong. Some of them aren't running very strong. You feel that with a horizontally opposed engine, just vibrations. What happens if I keep pulling back? Then it quits. Then it gets really quiet.
Yeah. No longer running rough.
And the fuel consumption goes way down. It's just so then what do?
Glide home.
Push it back in. That's happened to me. Get up to 12,000 feet, lean out for 12,000 feet. And one time I forgot. I was just, on my iPad, it'll tell you, well, my other radio does it too, but look on the iPad, it's just always on the bottom corner. It says my descent. So it knows where I'm going, right? And so it'll tell me how many feet per minute to descend to get to there. So if I'm like over this airport at 5,000 feet, it'll say, oh, you got to go 4,000 feet a minute to get here, right? So I wait until it says 500 feet per minute. That's a nice descent. And so I'll start at 500 feet per minute descent, which is really nice. I mean, if you're at 14,000 feet, that's like Stockton. Way before Stockton, you're already descending. And then, of course, I don't pull the power back. I ride it, man. So if it's smooth air, I'll just go right into it. So I'm freaking booking. And one time I forgot to put the mixture back in. It'll let you know. It just gets to a point where the air is nice and thick and the fuel you're giving it's nice and thin. And it just says, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. And it quits. It gets your attention. You're like, oh, you push the little red knob in and it just starts running again. Ain't no big deal. So I shouldn't do that. Okay. Boy, this is taking a while. So adds extra fuel at high. So, because I'm adding stuff now. 3. So regardless of the name, it enriches the mixture above cruise settings. Why and why? What it does is keeps, this was my actual notes, keeps the mixture at cruise settings from being too rich. Or adds extra fuel at high power settings. Remember, you could design it to do one of two things. Either take away some fuel in the middle or add fuel at the end. Depends on how the engineers wanted to do it. Yeah, one of two things. So what's that?
First word, something adds.
Or. I know, he's very busy back there doing other things, so you're gonna. What class did you sign up for?
Stats, American history.
What the odds of grade section?
Okay, so let's see here. In my notes, I have 5 different types. Not that there are 5 types. I have 5 types available to talk about. 1, the needle type.
This is under economizer.
Yep, 5 types of economizers. Okay, so remember the words I used, the difference between an economizer and a power enrichment, right? There we go. Let me see. Needle type. So we can talk the same thing. I can say, well, is this an economizer or is this power enrichment? And you should know, regardless of what they call it, because obviously they're calling this an economizer. Is it an economizer? So this is a needle type. So what happens here? As the throttle is opened up, this is going to pull this needle up. And as this needle comes up, the fuel in here will be allowed to go through here and go into a second metering jet. So here's the primary metering jet. Follow?
Yeah.
Needle opens up. We have a second metering jet. Is this an economizer or power enrichment? All right. You got it. So needle type as throttle is opened. Opened, a second jet is opened, allowing more fuel to the discharge nozzle. Two, piston type. Piston type. So let me see.
What you talked about earlier?
They call it an economizer jet. No, remember that was an
Oh, yeah,
accelerator.
that's the accelerator.
So in this system here, this looks like the economizer system in the economy. Oh yeah, because the throttle is partly open, so that's cruise. So in cruise, we have the float bowl. It comes through an economizer orifice. No, it doesn't. It comes through here, goes through our main metering jet and off to here. So, but when we go wide open throttle, this piston that's right here, this piston is right there. You can see that. They moved up. No, they moved down. They moved down.
Oh no, it's vacuum pressure that's sucking that one down, which thus pushes the other one down. Is that what it looks like to me?
Actually, this can be attached to,
Reattached mechanically?
yeah, mechanically.
And it pushes down the vacuum
Opens
pressure
up that
from the fluid that pulls fuel out of the economizer orifice.
Yep, so this moves down, opening up this orifice. So everything is going normal through here.
Yep.
And
This
second-
opens up and is allowed to go through there.
Second discharge nozzle.
Second discharge nozzle. So,
There's two pistons.
yes.
Yes.
1, 2.
Why? I don't understand why there's two pistons.
Yeah, when I just-
I know.
Then it seems a little.
It looks like,
Seals
That's-
up fuel.
I think there's some air. Well, yeah, that one just seals that spot off. But he's right. If it's just this, you could do that. It looks like there might be some
You don't
openings
really
right
have
there.
Two different pistons to seal off fuel. You just put two seals on.
Yeah.
That's why I thought maybe it was pulling vacuum and it was pulling that piston down.
I think it has air coming through it. Look, because
But
it's,
that wouldn't
it's
really-
getting emulsified at the top of that.
Yeah.
It says, okay, yeah. So,
Guess that would've-
so it must just be air orifices.
Yep. So you have air going through there.
Isn't affected by the negative pressure.
It's just a way of doing it. I don't know any carburetors that do that, by the way.
Okay.
I mean, they're there. I just
Love
never.
learning about shit that-
I just never worked on one, which is, just like I've never seen one on this, but to understand this is really helpful. So this one is the, what do I got? Piston. By the way, similar in operation needle, but uses a double piston in cruise, top piston. Oh, I do have.
Yeah, well, that next one.
Top piston allows air to enter the hole in the venturi. So it does allow air to enter the hole in the venturi. Yeah. Bottom piston blocks off fuel passage. So this is allowing, I'm right, there's some air coming through here, going in there. So it's economizer, you got air mixing in there. And then let's see, in cruise, above cruise, top piston blocks air. This comes down, blocks off the air passage. No more air. Bottom one opens up for fuel to get through into here.
That piston would be
Extra
affected
fuel is
by the
ported
negative
discharge
pressure.
nozzle. What's that?
I was just saying that piston would be affected by the negative pressure because it's got a valve.
All right, manifold pressure type. So both of those that we just looked at would work off the throttle, the mechanical linkage. Piston type. You want me to write all the notes I just said for piston?
Exactly the same as the needle.
Same as the needle.
Yes,
All right.
just open the thing.
3, manifold pressure type. Manifold pressure type. So this has some funky little stuff to it, which is cool. All right. You got a dash pot, which reminds me of a funny story. The fulcrum, so that's the point of which it pivots you have an evacuated bellows. Remember the, we haven't talked about that yet. I did a video on it, and a spring. So this spring is pushing this needle up. And we have a bellows. And so this is sensing the manifold pressure. So at idle, you're going to have a vacuum in the manifold, remember? Okay, so a vacuum, what is a vacuum going to do? It's going to lower this pressure, which makes, so think about a potato chip bag. If you go lower pressure, if you go down to Death Valley, or you guys ever play the ball in a pool?
Yeah, and then it gets like deflated as you pull it down.
Yeah, as you go down to ball, you know, that's higher pressure, okay, and then you go up, then it, so potato chip bag, same thing. As you go up in altitude and it becomes more of a vacuum, closer to vacuum, it expands, okay? So when this is a low pressure, potato chip's going to expand, pushing up on this, closing this off. Follow? All right. But when we add wide open throttle plate opens, what is the pressure on top of the throttle plate?
Almost ambient, yeah. Well,
Almost ambient. Ambient minus an inch. Okay, so that's high pressure now. This is connected right over here like that. So this senses the high pressure. That's high pressure. That's like a ball going down in the pool. And so this does what? Shrinkage. So it's going to want to shrink, which pushes against the spring, which is trying to push it up, then pushes this down, so the fuel comes through here, and it goes through here. So instead of being connected directly to the throttle, it's just working off air pressure, but doing the same thing we saw in the first one, the needle one, where we just open a second passage with a second metering jet. Follow? And a dash pot, that's like a shock absorber. Keeps it from moving too fast. Makes it move slow. It has to move through fluid.
Talk a lot about balls and pools and shrinkage in this one.
It's purely by accident. Manifold pressure type, let me see. As MAP, what's MAP stand for? Manifold absolute pressure is increased. A sealed bellows collapses and allows a valve to open, which adds fuel, to discharge nozzle. 4.
So far, all these economizers are power enrichments.
Oh, 4. Yes. 4. Back suction type. Back suction type. All right, let me see what I got for a picture here. All right, so just going backwards. Never seen this before. Good to get the idea. Never seen it before. Get the idea. Never seen it before. Get the idea. See it. Know it. Live it. All right, so the drawing here is not necessarily the best.
It's like a toilet with extra steps.
Well, that's because you're rich and you have a fancy toilet.
I said extra steps.
All right. I do this so I can enlarge it easier. There we go. All right. See that channel right there?
There's like 50
Yeah,
arrows.
it's
pointing. It's like I can't
Okay.
Right
Look
there.
at this hole.
That one that should be colored blue.
There's a bellow there.
With all the blue arrows.
Just made that arrow.
Fine, it went away. I hope you're happy.
There you
All right, so there's a passage right there. So what are we looking at there?
go. Atmospheric
What does it kind of look like it is? Coming up through here with the discharge nozzle.
That
Right.
looks like an idle discharge nozzle.
Looks like an idle discharge, but it's not. All right, so it looks just like it. But this particular passageway comes from the throttle area, there, from the throttle area up here. And so here's the throttle valve. And so when this is in idle, what's up here?
Vacuum.
Vacuum. What's down here?
Pressure.
Ambient pressure. And so I'm sorry, this passageway right there is on the back side of the venturi. So what is always right here?
Atmosphere.
Atmosphere. So whenever you're on the back side of the venturi, you're going to get ambient pressure. So how does my float bowl get vented? Right through here.
Through the.
Okay? So that's your normal venting.
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 Venting, so it would be.
I didn't say venti. This isn't a Starbucks. So I don't even know what that is. Can I get a medium? I always have to say, I'm sorry, I don't know what your language is. Can I just get a medium?
I don't know what that is. Wait, you're saying that goes to ambient pressure? That goes to ambient pressure?
Yes, because it's behind the venturi.
So it would be pressurizing the bowl?
Yes.
Okay. So you say vent, to me that kind of means it's venting inward.
Sure. Can vent inward.
Just making sure I was clear on that.
Yeah, I actually think about it as venting inward.
Okay. I thought about it.
But it's just a vent. So go back either which way. All right. But when the throttle is opened, well, here when the throttle is opened, and let's say we're at ambient pressure of 30 inches. How much pressure is right here?
30. Well, 29.
Yeah,
Maybe.
right down here. But below that is going to be
30.
30. And then here's the venturi. So above the venturi,
29.
29. Okay, here's a vent right here. Is that pretty much the same as this? Okay, so we just have a secondary vent, right? So nothing's really happening. But let's close this part way. So we got 30 here. What do we got up here?
Super
A lot
low.
less than.
Something less than. Okay, so
15. 5.
who said 14? What's wrong with you? No, I'm just kidding. I made fun of him after at 14. So that's a low pressure up here. Got the low up here. So now this is going to draw out that way, decreasing the pressure in here.
So once the difference is greater, you think, or something like that, then,
Yeah.
then that hole that can produce that
Yep.
hole.
Sounds kind of like an idle discharge.
Could have go out that way.
So it essentially enriches it when when the throttle's closed, or more close to closed,
Sounds more like an
because it's higher pressure.
Okay, yeah. So when it's closed,
I mean, that's just enriching.
everything below here is going to be at 30 inches.
Oh, it
So
wouldn't
it
be
doesn't do
enriching.
anything.
It would just be static.
It's static. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. Wide open throttle. Well, you did the best you can. This is going to be 29. This is going to be 30. I mean, it'd be great if there's both 30, but it's close enough. So
What's the point of that second hole, the bottom one?
this one?
Yeah, I don't understand that. Why did the economizer hole can't function as both?
Oh, because at this spot right there,
Oh, then the economizer would be.
that's a total vacuum and the engine would shut down.
Oh, yeah, it would just suck. Okay. So
It would suck all the air out. So this right now is going to be sucking air out. So you can't have all the air being sucked out of the float bowl, can you?
No.
You got to. So we'll add this right there. Okay, well there. Now there it's providing some air here, but that you're going to suck a little bit. Well, then you're going to take a little bit out that way. So now instead of all this air, we just got 2 of them.
Yeah.
2, and then 1 went that way, right? So yeah, making that up. If I had a total of 3 air inputs here, and then this went to 65% power, and now you have 2 airs going this way and 1 going that way. I just made that up right now. It's really crazy, but that worked for you. So what is that doing? Is that an economizer or power enrichment?
It's gotta be in
It's economizer. It's pulling it down for the use of a suction and the mid-range. So that's going to be on the model MA, your MA3As, I think, MA3A. Not all of the carburetors have that. Some do, some don't. You have to find it. Oh, I was already in it. Thank you. But now I'm not. Now I'm still not. I'm looking for, where the hell did it go?
Third one.
Not that one. Oh, OneNote. I see it. We'll just edit that part out. Nobody will ever notice. Because you know I'm not gonna. So that's the box suction type. Back suction type. In cruise power. By the way, I can make this bigger or smaller. I mean, you just got to tell me what you want. Anybody but Evan has to tell me what they would like.
What?
We got like 500 megawatts.
I didn't even say anything.
The cruise power vacuum is applied to the float bowl, which lowers the what?
Pressure.
I wrote the dumbest thing in my notes. I won't even tell you what. It's like
Tell it. You have to.
No, you have to know.
The flow rate into the bowl.
in cruise power, vacuum is applied to the float bowl, which lowers the fuel level at the discharge nozzle. It lowers the what?
The flow rate into the bowl.
The fuel.
The what? I think I'm hearing it. Yes, fuel metering force, which is the difference between.
One thing and another.
There you go. Pressure on top of the float in the float chamber versus the discharge nozzle. If you lower the fuel metering force, you get
Leaner.
less fuel, leaner.
Someone back there said that way.
All right, so definitely that's a common one. This is also a common one. Air bleed type. By the way, one of the books that I have provided for you a copy of, it's produced by either Precision or Marvel Schebler. I can't remember which. It's the company was bought out and sold. And when they talk about, I think one of the back suction types, it just goes into this couple sentences worth of something that is completely non-existent and not true. So I don't remember if I wrote that in your project sheet or not, but if you're reading your stuff and it's like the walkthrough and it's talking about something and you're looking at it, if it's not there, it's not there. Don't try and make what it says fit. I mean, you try and make it, but if it's like, no, what you're saying just doesn't exist. It's like they put a valve attached to the mixture or something. It's like, that's not true. It doesn't even exist. So anyway.
Right, learn somebody about that.
No, let everybody else be stupid. We know the difference. All right, so the air bleed type.
It's just called job security.
Yeah. Air bleed type. Here we go. So the big carburetors, the larger Marvel Schebs, the MA45, use a needle valve that is controlled by the throttle. It is. Oh, no, I shouldn't have done that. Sorry. Just looking for that carburetor. There we go. It's this carburetor right here. It's in this piece section right here. You can't even see it. All you can see is the throttle lever. But right up in here is where it is. And so the throttle pushes this little thing onto a valve that's in there. So at full throttle, the needle valve is closed, which enriches the mixture by closing off the air bleed. But as you pull back towards idle, it pulls this back because it's on a spring, and air is allowed to get through here, which comes over to here, and then goes into the discharge nozzle and out. Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't get that.
Okay, So
Wait,
it's,
throttle which way is forward on the throttle? If you
well,
put-
think about this. See, this is up, right?
Okay,
If the
yeah.
plunger's up, and what is this thing right here?
That's
Says
the
right
piston height, the accelerator.
Accelerator. So if it's up, I must be in idle. And if this is drawn correctly, then this has to be in idle, and this is now open,
Pulling air.
Open.
open.
Normal air now.
So that's pulling air into the float.
So air is allowed to come through here.
Where that air is coming from where though?
Oh, it's inside of here, inside of the float chamber. It's actually a
Oh, so it's pulling air from the float chamber into the
Yes.
the bleed air.
yes,
Or the bleed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Main
it's
air.
pulling the fumes from the fuel that's sitting in there.
yep,
Right. Instead of ambient air.
yep. And then as you go full throttle, it's going to close that off, blocking this off. This carburetor is very different.
And
Even in, oops, I don't want to do that.
Accelerator.
Even in looks, I don't think I have a. let's see. Well, that's it right there.
Yeah, that's the one they do like a.
That's that valve right there up at the top.
That's it.
They got
Yep.
listed.
So this comes around, hits that, and this is all inside of the carburetor. It's not outside. They actually put a cavity goes all the way up to the top. And so when the throttle shaft runs through, you actually has to run through 3 different walls to get through. So that is up there. What else? No, just Carb Monkey. We do have a cutaway of this in the lab. I took this project out. There was a project when I first started where you had to adjust this needle, and it's either the easiest thing you've ever done or the most god-awful difficult thing you've ever done. So if you don't have the tool, you have to do this complex measurement and mathematical. Math isn't complicated, but the measurements are very complicated. Then you have to figure out the difference between the two, and you have to know exactly where to measure from, which is really, really difficult, which means you almost have to know what the outcome is before you can start measuring to know where to measure from. And then you do all of this work, and then you set this thing, or you buy the tool, and it tells you to turn it all the way in and back out X number of turns or something stupid like that. So it's either a completely brainless operation or something so complicated most seasoned people can't even figure out. So it's like,
So they go buy the brainless tool.
so why wouldn't you? You know, it's like, and we have both. So it's like, of
You're
course,
so nice for taking out that project.
it was just a busy work as far as I was concerned. If you're gonna overhaul and set up MA, I mean, when would you adjust this right here? I'd overhaul. So yeah. Anyway,
At which point we know to go buy the brain dead tool for it anyway.
yeah. What's up?
Can you go back to that other picture where the more cartoony picture, not that one.
I didn't mean to go that way.
What did I look at?
Evan's big on pictures.
So, that was mixture control. Oh, I see, on the left hand side. So that was just the fuel economy. So if then it's the throttle's full, it closes that valve, and then you're running richer.
Yes. Less air.
So it's not an economizer. It is an economizer.
Wow. What would I
I'm
call
sorry,
this
it's
one?
confusing to me.
Would I call this? I know. So I say, wow. That's a thinker. Is that an economizer or power enrichment?
Seems like it could be both.
It can kind of be both, depending on the way you look at it. So,
This is like the only one that they can actually use that word.
but it's actually an economizer. Why? Because it's what it says, and that's what that part is called, the economizer needle. So, therefore, it's an economizer.
What you're buying.
So, yeah. Okay. So the air bleed type. Let's see. That was larger Marvel Sheblers. Carbs. Oops. Erase. Nope. MA4-5s. Use a needle valve. Needle valve controlled by the throttle. Full throttle. Valve is closed. let's see, closed off. It's closed. I'll just put this. See, at lower power settings. Valve is open, allowing float air to, well, I say vent to discharge nozzle. Kind of like that. All right, and then I'm gonna put this one. I know I said 5, so. Float level type. Somebody once pointed this out to me a long time ago, and I thought, hey, maybe that's true. Let me see. Oops, we got a long way to go. Get rid of this. All the way back up here to this one. If you had something that had no sort of economizer system and you started to climb, as you climb and you're in this attitude right there, the carburetor is going to settle like this, which means the fuel level is going to seek level. The fuel level seeks it's to level out. Isn't this now further below the fuel than it was when it was level?
Yes.
So if that's the case, would this add more fuel pressure to this
And decrease.
and allow more fuel to go to the discharge nozzle because of that? I don't know.
Mayhaps.
So
So
make sure
it's oriented the right way to benefit you when climbing?
Yeah. So maybe there's that type. I don't know.
It's forcing you to be rich.
Theoretical. Float level type. Theoretical.
Theoretical, because what kind of enrichment system does the Stromberg have?
Back.
No, that's
Doesn't have anything that I'm aware of.
gravity.
Yeah. So if we go all the way
That's
up.
fuel, that's mixture.
Yeah, so we go all the way back up to our big color drawing. Oh, really? Where'd it go? Somewhere.
Tell me where it is.
Way down here. I told you I'm all over the place with these ones. We go back to this drawing right here. Do we have any sort of economizer?
No.
Not that I can see. Any sort of power enrichment?
So then that would just depend
Not that
on
I
how
can
they
see.
oriented the carburetor on the airplane. Because if you oriented it the other way,
This is the
then-
front right here. Can you see that?
Yeah, so then in that case, if you were to climb, you would lose fuel pressure. If it was the opposite way, and that valve was in the back, then the you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I see what you mean.
It depends on which way you tip it, which way is the airplane facing.
I just showed you.
Front, so,
It's going this way.
yeah, so if you tip back,
That's
well, you
good.
gotta get your belly out of the way.
So
Damn.
Whoa! Sorry, Eric.
Well,
I got
hey,
it. It's a food.
he's got it,
It's a
he's
food
got it.
baby. I'll deliver it later.
If you don't stick his gut out, then he's just doing this. And
Can you put the last few sentences up?
What?
Can you put the last few,
Yes.
paragraph